This incredibly successful veteran of real estate private equity has nearly 2 decades of experience as an entrepreneur. He also almost flunked out of college his freshman year. Father to Sofia and Solomon, husband of Rebecca. He is a Chicagoan through and through, a Chicagoan whose love for his family and his community is palpable. Recently, the commercial real estate firm he co-founded and currently serves as CEO announced plans to build a $257 million data center in the Illinois Medical District, making it one of the year's biggest projects. Please join me and the social entrepreneur with a heart of gold, Craig Huffman, in the arena right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Craig Huffman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
It's a pleasure to welcome you in the arena. You are a neighbor
Yes.
over here. We're right here in the Illinois Medical District. We'll
is
talk
correct.
about all of that, how our partnerships and that $257 million project I just talked about in the open. But let's begin at the beginning.
Absolutely.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Chicago, actually Michael Reese Hospital, which no longer exists, but will probably be developed into something. South side of Chicago,
Okay.
Near Pale Hill, Calumet Heights is where I grew up.
Okay. Tell me about the man and the woman who created you.
Foundational. Most important people in my life. My late mother and my late father were significant influences in my life. I mean, they really, from an early age, established that education was very important, although I didn't always listen when I was young. We'll talk about that
Fair
in
enough.
college.
Lessons learned.
But my father really instilled the importance of working, the importance of being self-motivated, right? One of his favorite sayings when I was growing up, why is a diamond the most precious jewel in the world? Pressure turns coal into a diamond over a long process. And he would use that to say, where you are today is not necessarily where you're going to be in the future. My mom was a nurturer. My father was the firm hand that ensured that I didn't go on the wrong path. But they both loved me tremendously.
Wow. Wow. You have one sibling.
I have one sibling,
Brother,
older brother.
Older brother.
Yeah, my mom actually lost a child between me and my brother. My older brother's 10 years older than me.
okay.
And so, people would often ask, okay, who was the surprise, your brother or you? I was like, one of us probably was. Yeah. But I like to argue I was planned because my parents, it's very traumatic to lose a child. And I think that explains the gap between my brother and I,
Fair
older
enough.
brother.
And who's Rebecca again?
My wife, my lovely wife.
How long have the
is
two of you been married?
20 years this year, and we dated for almost 5. So 25 years she's been with me.
Take a step back and tell me how the two of you met.
Yes, actually, if you can believe it, we used to work together when I actually had a day job. I was in the nonprofit sector in my early 20s, and I joke and say I wanted to make the world a better place, save the world. I guess now I own pieces of the world. But I met my wife, and quite honestly, she was like no one else that I had met. There was a purity to her spirit. She's an incredibly nice person. I think my kids have benefited from that nice side because, when you're an entrepreneur, you be nice, but you also got to be tough.
You've got to nurture all of your sides.
But her father was an entrepreneur, and so I think it prepared her for the journey of marrying someone that
partners to someone
gets
like
on
you.
that roller coaster known as entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And who said I love you first?
That's a great question. You're taking me back in time. That's a good
We're going to get in the
question.
arena. We got to get in, sir.
I think we may have said it the same day many, many years ago, same time. It wasn't in year one when we were dating, because I think I wanted to figure out, we were both very young.
Sure.
And for me, I was always career focused, and I knew the person that I was going to long-term be with also had to be ambitious. Maybe not in the exact same way as me, but they needed to understand that we're a team, right? And if we both are contributing, right? It's like potluck. We both bringing something to the potluck. It's going to be a better meal.
So you're equally yoked.
Yes,
Got it.
absolutely.
Sophia and Solomon
Yes.
are your 13-year-old daughter, your 12-year-old son.
Actually, now my son is 14, December 28th.
It's important. Happy
And my
birthday,
daughter
sir.
would want me to clarify. She is 15, will be 16 this
Sophia
year.
and Solomon, my apologies. Happy birthday to you both.
You know how teenagers are.
Listen, you know how 54-year-olds
Exactly.
are.
Yeah, trust me.
They've earned every year. How does being a father to those two incredible humans impact how you move through the world?
It's an honor. It really is centering. I think so often in life we focus on a lot of things that aren't as important as we realize they are when we get older. My kids are my why, right? When I get up in the morning, I think about, am I going to do things that make them proud or the opposite? And so having children and watching them grow up has probably been one of the most fulfilling things. I didn't grow up with kids. I didn't have a younger brother or younger sister, and so I didn't get it. My wife was a babysitter, had nieces and nephews, had a lot of folks in her family, so she was familiar with young kids. I wasn't. And so I came in thinking, okay, kids, cool, but I had no context. Now I look at it and say, this is amazing, because when I'm gone, people will measure me partly by who they are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Since the time you earned your master's degree and your MBA, because why not?
Yeah, right.
From the University of Chicago, and you've built a career, a family. But I want to spend a little time focusing, because there are always themes and patterns and transformations and second chances and the power of our resiliency and the power and mercy of second chances that we give ourselves and others give us. So I sit here saying, when I'm saying 257 million, successful by every definition. This isn't subjective.
You're going to execute, but yes, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Master's degree, MBA from University of Chicago, a prestigious school. But as an undergraduate at Morehouse, tell me what happened.
How I almost flunked out my freshman year.
Yeah, that's what you, yes.
Yeah, I knew where you were going.
Because you said something in our pre-interview about your GPA that just sticks with me.
I recently shared this with my daughter, and she really obsesses over grades, and she was shocked. Like, you, Daddy, of all people?
And that's something.
I will tell you this. Freshman year of college is a pivotal time because you get tons of freedom, right? You have to be motivated. For me, I was staying up very late, and so I had an 8 a.m. English class. 8 a.m. classes were precisely. That was more of a suggestion than a requirement. And so I slept through a lot of classes. At that time, I loved playing basketball, so I would go on the basketball courts, play pickup, intramural basketball until 2 in the morning.
And you were at Morehouse?
I was at Morehouse College, and then we would just play pickup games till the wee hours. And so staying up, flying, what was they say? You fly with owls, you cannot soar with eagles. That was another Sam Huffman quote. And so I was staying up, right, missing class, and also not applying myself. I was just enjoying the freedom of being a college student. And I got the lowest possible GPA that you could get and say that you actually attended class.
And sir, I don't mean to laugh, but every time you say it, the University of Michigan first year in me goes, I respect and understand what that's like, sir.
It's a major transition. I mean, I didn't understand many years ago the concept behind a gap year because historically African Americans are like, we don't have time for a gap.
Can't afford,
get to work. We can't afford it. It's expensive.
A gap year.
And for me, when I look back on it, I said, I was not mature enough to understand the opportunity that was presented to me to be able to attend a Morehouse. I also did not fully understand, my parents don't come from money. Right. They were working, not working, they were middle class and they had great jobs, great salaries, but it wasn't, they weren't wealthy by any standards. And so it was a tremendous sacrifice to help me attend college. And in that moment, Morehouse at that, which wasn't the cheapest, still isn't. No. And so I also didn't appreciate that sacrifice that they were making to provide, because my late father wanted to attend Morehouse. He didn't have the money to. he went to Alabama State because it's what he could afford.
Wow.
Not to say that Alabama State's not a great
got it,
school,
yes.
but it was different.
Yeah.
And so it was the dreams deferred of the father oftentimes can be realized by the children, right?
If they realize the sacrifices their forebears made for it.
It was a pivotal point for me. It was one of the most pivotal points because I'll never forget, my father, I expected him to yell at me when he saw the grades. I thought he was just gonna, really, and he did the opposite. It was probably more effective. What he did is he said, son, I've come to realize that my expectations may just be too high for you. Yeah, exactly. That's
right.
the
Up there was
feeling.
saying, I'm disappointed.
And there was this anger that started welling up inside because I would always show signs that I was intelligent. I wouldn't necessarily always put the effort to back that up, right? Because I tell people you could have natural ability, but without work,
Got to do the work.
ability is often wasted, right? And so when my father said that, I was expecting one approach, right? That I'd kind of tune in, half tune out. It was the opposite. And he just said, hey, maybe we should just send you to a local school, a community college.
The very core.
He did. And I get emotional thinking about my father. From that point on, so that, saying that to me, as well as I hadn't done what I needed to do to get a summer job, I was able to get a job with some help from him, telemarketer. Talk about a tough job. I don't even know if kids now know what telemarketers really are. When the phone would ring and people would call you pitching
Craig,
things.
I'm not even joking. I just had this conversation with one of our producers today about telemarketing.
Yes.
It's still around. It's still needed, but
Yeah, it's different.
people aren't. Most people are not going, oh, that is
Yeah,
where
that's
I
right.
want to be.
No. So, and to make it even better, that was my day job, which I hated. And then I had a job at night as a janitor. My father got me that job. Very effective because I was working with grown men that
Who had made choices.
Or
didn't have choices
And
at
they
all.
looked at me and said, if you have a chance to finish school, you know what I would give to be in your shoes? And so it was really perspective building because I was able to see these men that were 15, 20 years older than me
Yes.
that were doing the same work, although I was given the low person on the totem pole, the toothbrush, cleaning
Sure.
the toilets underneath, all the stuff that no one else wanted to do. And it really caused me to have a moment to say, okay, Craig, what do you really want to do here? Because you're making some choices that are going to lead you in a direction
You're making
that...
adult choices now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Those choices are going to be increasingly costly. So I'm proud to say I got a chance to go back for my second year, Dean's List honor roll every semester from that point on. More importantly, though, I looked at my circle because the kids that I hung out with my freshman year were not the same kids I hung out with when I came back my sophomore year. I really remade my circle. I remade my study habits. I started dating a young woman that was an excellent student. So I curated my world to support who I wanted to become, not where I had been.
And that is a powerful point when we talk about mentors and spaces. And I think I would love for you to talk about this, especially for those of us who are the first or
First entrepreneur.
Yeah, there become these times where you can't even support what you've not seen. And
Absolutely.
sometimes if you're going in a rarefied space, there is such a thing where you have to say, I have to bless and release these relationships.
Exactly.
It's not.
That's right.
Because does it feel sometimes you, as you're going into the spaces you're going, just what I'm saying from like just getting ready to have this conversation with you, I can't imagine that every friend who you've known from the beginning can even take that journey.
No.
And does it even feel fair to them because your worlds just are not
right.
looking at all the same? How do you manage it?
The conversations are different. One of my relatives told me something a few months ago. As you elevate, you may find that you have to separate, right?
Yes.
Meaning that you're going places, and if other people can't see where you're going, the natural reaction might be jealousy. Why are you on it? Like unintentionally sabotaging what your path is. And for many of us, particularly in the African American community, it's tough because there aren't as many proof points of folks doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
There are points, but not
Absolutely.
as many as there are in other communities. And so when I want to seek out mentorship, it's a more narrow road than if I were coming from a community where I was like, oh, my cousin
Sure.
did this, my uncle did this, my friend did this.
I had an internship with somebody whose parent did that and did
That's
that.
Right.
And that. Yes.
That's right. You're
yeah.
staring into the darkness and you're saying, I'm going to keep driving even though I can't see completely where I'm going.
So you're talking this black man, born and raised on Chicago's South Side.
Yes.
Talking not millions, but hundreds of millions of dollars of deals. And I don't, and I say this to folks because we need to, all of us, for me, representation matters even at 54, to look across the table and see someone who looks like you and see myself in
Yes.
you.
You got to see it to want to be
yeah.
it.
And,
Yeah.
and some of the things that we all know, it's profoundly simple. We make things complicated.
Yep.
So as you have made this journey, where you are now, you have Rebecca, you have Sophia, you have Solomon. Do you ever find yourself feeling in your skin alone in the world?
That's a great question. Yes is the short answer. I've done a really good job of identifying people that can be part of a support system. But if you ask me, do I have 10 friends that are doing the same thing I'm doing? No. Do I have 5 that look like me? No. So what I've had to do is to really be intentional. Like I have a friend that just sold a business for $1 billion. He's actually Latino, and we naturally kind of connected because that's pretty rare air, right? And so I sought him out because I said, I want you to be someone that I can talk to, strategize with, because you've seen things that I hope to see, right? And I think that's where people that are going to achieve success, who's on your squad? Who's on your team?
Who's on your personal board? Man?
Exactly.
Yes.
Who's on your personal board of directors? Do you have the right people advising you, supporting you, praying for you when you're not around, cheering for you when you're not around? Because don't tell me be rah-rah when I'm in the room. I need you to be rah-rah when I'm not in the room.
Come on. You need to, it's the difference between mentors, coaches, and sponsors.
Absolutely.
I need you saying my name when I'm not in the room.
Exactly.
And I'm going to ask you this. You hear this survivor's guilt. Do you have success guilt?
Because it's been such a long journey and all this great gray hair has been hard earned, I'd say
Oh, come on now.
no, not today, because it's been a long journey.
Okay.
I mean, I've had, twists and turns. I've had failure. I've had success. I've sipped from the cup of failure, sipped from the cup of success. And where I feel today is I've done the work to earn the opportunity. Not a guarantee, but to earn the opportunity. So I wouldn't say guilt. I think for me it becomes, I tell folks all the time, look, if you think I'm interesting, that's great. But there are tons of kids on the South Side that could be me with the right opportunities, whether it's after school programs, you name it. But we need engagement because I'm not that unique, right? There's tons of kids that could achieve the same outcome that I have with the right opportunity.
And if you are, you shouldn't be.
Exactly. That's the problem. I don't want to be the only one in the room.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2006, you co-founded and served as principal of Ascendance Partners, Chicago-based real estate private equity firm focused on commercial real estate investments in Metro Chicago.
Yes.
Ascendance was an early, there's some themes here.
Oh, yeah.
Ascendance was an early sponsor of institutional investment funds that acquired real estate in economically underserved communities of Chicago.
Yes.
Then 2020, during the height, at the very height, look at you. You
crazy.
You like, well, you said it, sir.
Such a crazy.
But it gets you through the day.
It does.
The height of the COVID-19 pandemic, you co-founded and you currently serve as the CEO of Metro Edge, a firm that builds technology-oriented real estate developments. But here is what, you talk about efficiencies, integrating systems, optimizing profitability. But you also talk about something I see as the through line of your career, and that is, we've named the title of the show, Mining for the Social Good.
Yes.
And you are, part of the reason I wanted to sit with you, and I've said it to your face, and I've said it behind your back too, but to your face, it's the social impact aspect of what you're doing.
That's right.
Talk to me about why that is more than just a message point. That is embedded, it feels like, in the DNA of your work.
It's who I am. I mean, how many entrepreneurs doing what I'm doing, have a master's in social work and an MBA in finance.
I met one.
Me.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So part of what I think you have to understand is it goes back to my parents, the intentionality of them raising me to say it's about more than just making money, although making money is important because we want you to be independent,
Absolutely.
son.
Yes.
But at the same time, what more, right? I mean, I've met very wealthy people that are unhappy, right? I've met people that the world would define as not having a lot, but they've got the love of family, friends, and others. And so on this journey called life, I've begun to look and say to myself, success is not just money. It's what do people say at your funeral? Do they tell the truth, or do they have to create a bunch of lies, right?
I've been at both funerals.
Precisely. And so part of this is a statement of, are you leaving it better than you found it? And, we can be honest and say in the African American community, we have some challenges. In this city, we have some challenges.
Absolutely.
The opportunities don't line up with what they should. And so for me, it's if I'm not thinking of doing something, what am I doing, right? If I'm not saying, how do I leverage the blessings and the opportunities that I have in front of me, at the same time, clearly, if I'm not profitable, if I'm not successful, then it's hard to give back if you're trying to give to yourself just to stay alive. But if you get past that point, what are you doing?
Wow.
That's the challenge that should be issued to every person, particularly business people of color.
Agreed. Tell me, a recent headline in a major business journal, going back to Metro Edge's work, the headline said, "Data is the new gold."
Yes.
Yeah. Metro Edge to build $257 million data center. See how
Yeah, I love
in the
it.
Illinois.
Sounds better when you say it.
I'm just saying, listen, I'm here when you need me.
You're
I
right,
can walk,
man.
when you walk into rooms, I'll be like, data
exactly.
center.
Exactly.
But again, one of the year's biggest projects, and someone like me growing up and seeing these things said about people and companies that did not look or feel like me is a thrill even at 54.
Yep.
But tell me more about that project. Right here in the neighborhood we share.
Not far.
Tell me about the project and tell me why it should matter to Chicagoans.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. It absolutely should matter. Data is very important. Look, we all are using data centers, whether we know it or not. Smartphones, tablets, laptops, or even our TV, right? Storage of data. And so data is everywhere and nowhere, I like to tell people, because we don't see it. And I use the analogy of as this new technology in the 90s was being adopted, known as cell phones, right? Mobile phones now, but cell phones back then. You saw people beginning to move away from just using landlines, right? We're now at a point where if you were to say, I want to check a website, you're old enough to remember dial-up. If it was dial-up speed, you're abandoning that site. And so we all have an addiction to accessing information at our fingertips in a fast way. Well, there's infrastructure that has to support that. And the data center is just one component of that infrastructure. When you drill down even further and look at healthcare, healthcare has experienced tremendous challenge as a result of the pandemic. But then you even go further back. The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, was a law or legislation that required hospitals to digitize records. If the pandemic had happened and we didn't have digital records, can you imagine? I mean, FedEx and UPS would have loved it, but the shipping of folks that were working remotely in other cities, if they have an illness, need to see a doctor. So there's so many layers to this. Telemedicine has become more common. I don't know if you've done a telehealth visit, but I love the convenience of it. Sitting in a doctor's office, waiting for a few hours or an hour versus being able to wait on my phone, night and day. And so all these things require infrastructure that's important to continue to allow us to enjoy what we all now
all the
expect.
things we take, the rest of us
that
take
we
for
take
granted.
for granted.
I'm going to stop right there. I knew it. It always happens when I'm talking to folks like you, sir. The conversation, these minutes go too fast. We are not done.
Okay.
We're going to come back and do a final segment called Three for the Road.
Yes.
But for right now, we're going to take a break and be right back.
The players, the politics, the problems, and the people. Political Forum offers local legislators and political newsmakers an opportunity to participate in a one-on-one interview to discuss the most important political headlines in Chicago. Join us for Political Forum Wednesday at 7 p.m. on KNTV 19 and streaming at knTV.org. The world is watching Chicago. Chicago is watching Political Forum.
Craig Huffman. Final segment is one we like to call Three for the Road.
Yes.
Here's how it works.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Great.
You are going to give me 3 answers.
All right.
You ready?
All right. I'll try my best.
Wait, what? Like a game show. Good luck. If you could have dinner with any person, living or dead, who would you choose and why?
So I would say to this question, Dr. King. And as we are in the month of the celebration of his life, his birth and his life. And the reason I watched King in the Wilderness recently, and what people don't realize, what was accomplished, right, through his efforts and the efforts of many more, was substantial.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he had some depression, he had some disappointment, wondering if he had done all that he needed. Have I led folks to sit at the countertop, to, you know, the restaurant, at the table, when I should have been pushing for us to have some equity or ownership. And so that resonates, because I'd love to have that conversation with Dr. King and really hear what he thought the next leg or the next step was. Another person, 2 people, 1 person. The other person I'd say is Abraham Lincoln, all right? As we think about this month where they talk, the Emancipation Proclamation, I am the descendant of slaves. Right?
Yes.
Let that sink in. And so understanding how that decision, that legislation, changed the course of my ancestors' lives and ultimately my life.
Wow. That's a good start. You felt good?
That's
felt
great.
good for me.
That's
All right,
great.
here's going to be a quick one. Number 2, do you have any regrets?
Ooh, probably when I didn't take advantage of mentorship or support that was offered, because I was too young to understand. In my 20s, there were some folks that were helpful or wanted to be helpful, but I just wasn't fully aware, right? So that's the only thing. I don't necessarily believe in regrets. I think they're learning experiences. But when I look back, there are a couple folks that I say to myself now wanted to be helpful.
Perfect segue, great answer, into our 3rd and final question. One piece of advice that present day Craig would have given his 21-year-old self.
Oh, this is a great one.
Come on.
I would say patience. Life is a marathon. When I was 21, 52 seemed ancient. Now at 52, I realize it is a blessing. My late father used to say, it's a blessing to be able to stand vertical every day, son. Don't take it for granted. And so understanding that this thing called life, you have one opportunity, right? And it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Your father is an incredible, incredible man. I would have loved to have had the privilege of knowing and listening to.
He's a great man.
And as we talk about legacies, you are one of his greatest sitting here. Thank you, sir. This is the first of many conversations that you and I are going to have.
Yep.
So thank you for this and many to come. And thank you, Chicago and beyond, for tuning in tonight. Craig and I are going to continue our conversation on In the Arena Extra. You can watch that exclusively on CanTV's bright, shiny new website, cantv.org. In the meantime, let me leave you with a final thought for the road, courtesy of President Lyndon B. Johnson. If future generations are to remember us more with gratitude than sorrow, we must achieve more than just the miracles of technology. We must also leave them a glimpse of the world as it was created, not just as it looked when we got through with it. Until next time, take good care of you and each other. Good night. You're like me. When I feel it, it's Baptist church for me. I go,
I know, right?
It's a sign of an active listener.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.